Good afternoon, Dr. Bill. How are you there, sir?
I'm fine. How can you be otherwise on this beautiful Singapore day? I've got white clouds and blue sky in front of me, and I'm talking to you. So what better way to have a coffee than with my friend Vanan?
Cheers, cheers, Doc. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in the session today because I find some synchronization in between the both of us, and we got connected for some kind of blessings, I believe so. Especially during this challenge time because I got a most privileged period of my time where we are sharing all kind of information during this COVID-19 for people might need that additional help. But I think the expertise that you are coming from, Doc Phil, I think is amazing because you have so much of wealth experience. I don't know how many decades, but I can say easily about 4 to 5 decades. And yet you are
40 years.
40 years of humble experiences, and you're still learning and you're still sharing. You conduct seminars and lectures and so much of things. So there's so much of things to talk about. So I'm not sure if we have the time today to complete all, but it will be my blessing to share. Before,
Thanks, Vanan.
before we start on, Doc, let me just give our audience a short introduction about yourself
Okay.
so
Okay.
they know who is this genius man that I'm having a conversation with. So yes, guys and girls and people, today with me is Dr. Bill. He is such an amazing man. I mean, first of all, I have to give it to his age. Just look at him. Just guess his age. When I first saw Dr. Bill, I thought he was just 51. I'm not expecting a coffee, but he is 70. Am I right to say that, sir?
I'm 71 this year.
71, and he still looked like a young 50. He's not even there halfway yet. But Dr. Phil, I'm going to dive into the just a bit of information that I know of or what we shared of. So Dr. Phil has a PhD in synchronicity. So I think that is what caught my attention because I think that is so much of value information to share with a lot of people out there.
Synchronicity and leadership.
Synchronicity and leadership. And Doc, you also teach in neuroscience and change.
I teach many things to do with leaders and teams globally,
Okay.
and I've run seminars in 61 countries over the last 30, 40 years. But one of my programs, yes, is Change Your Mind, Create New Results, which is all about how you look at neuro change and how the brain drops habits to help change happen, because you can't change unless you drop old habits.
Thank you so much for that information there, Doc. But I think it's going to be a very fruitful session, like I mentioned earlier. Not sure if we have that 45 minutes to get that 40 years of your experiences. But I think anyone who's watching this is going to get full of information and Dr. Phil's projects and what these great men have done in the past decades. But let's dive into the topic. Doctor, we talked about COVID-19. The
Right.
most well-known topic at this point of time in the humankind. With the current situation, Doc, I know we want to get things better, but again, we come back to the same topic. How is this thing has impacted us so badly that some are just losing hope?
Do you want to talk about my own personal story, or do you want
Yes,
me to
Doc,
talk now?
I think that would be great.
I can talk about both. I think when people are losing hope, and by the way, I've lived in Singapore 30 years. This is my home. I'm married to a Singaporean from the UK originally, but love to live in Singapore, especially at this time. While sympathizing with my brothers and sisters around the world, my first statement is everybody is afraid of dying. Now, none of us are going to die, or very few percentage of the world's population will die. But I think what this COVID-19 has done is a silent killer. It's stalking and crossing borders so easily. And because we can't go out, except in certain cases, then obviously it makes us afraid. So what COVID-19 has done is actually return us to survival mentality. We all of us have in our brain survival genes. And that's why I think it's a bad time or a strange time or a difficult time for all of us, that we can't even go out and explore this beautiful world. I'm looking over Singapore. I live near Boat Quay in Chinatown. I have Parliament in front of me. I have the round eye in front of me, Marina Bay Sands. I can see it, but I can't experience it. So COVID-19 is tough because it's impacted every part of our lives and has actually brought us face to face with fear of death.
Thank you, Doctor. I mean, it is very saddening. But again, we can't be allowing the situation to endorse us to be in that situation itself. So that is where we are going into the topic of, we had a little chat. And I also saw an 8 minutes video of yours, and I really felt it, because no one, or rather a few percentage, will want to show their strength. In fact, so many people want to show their strength, but there are very few that might want to share their personal experiences. But I think in your particular, not even a story, a life experiences, which I have seen it, and I can really feel the impact, because I saw some of the truth that you were just sharing out with everyone. Could we talk a little bit of that? What exactly has happened?
Sure, no problem. But let me say to begin with, strength at the moment is about being vulnerable and recognizing all of your feelings. And the case in point, which you saw my video, now, I'm 70 years old, 71 this year, and I've been teaching and experiencing meditation, spiritual matters, teaching resilience, teaching well-being, most of my working life. And when I heard about COVID, I kind of thought, well, it's not going to touch me. And even if it does, it's actually going to be okay because I'll cope with it. I'm mature enough. But I had an experience nowhere near as bad as some people in the world. So I don't want to make my experience to be some big deal. But it was a big deal for me in terms of what it made me feel. I've had a low-grade cough for months now. And I went to my doctor, 4 weeks ago now, and he said, Philip, you don't have COVID-19. I've had the same doctor for 30 years. I trust him, Dr. Singh. You don't have COVID-19. You have a low-grade virus. I said, okay, fair enough. And then the cough didn't go away. So the more I saw these things going on around the world, I thought, let me go see my doctor again. Same doctor, 1 week later, I expected he'd give me some cough syrup or whatever. He said, Philip, we now have to send you for a COVID test if you have any symptom at all. Now, the amazing thing was, Fanan, that gone was my blasé, positive attitude that I thought I had. As soon as he said you have to go for a COVID test, my mind immediately went to fear and anxiety. And my thought immediately was, oh my God, what if I've got it? What if I end up in hospital? What if I die there? What if I've infected my wife and she dies too? Now, here's from a man who thought, he's strong and mature and all the rest of it. And so I think the biggest lesson was, no matter how old you are, it's okay to feel fear. It's okay to feel anxiety. A lot of people you'll see on the internet and around will say, be positive. Now's the time to be positive. Nonsense. If you feel afraid, let yourself express those fears. Now, you may move through it, as I did, to feel a bit more positive. But there I was, stuck at home for 5 days because I had to be on quarantine, waiting for my results. My God, Valentine, I can't tell you what an awful time that was. I expected me to say, of course it's going to be fine. Of course I'm going to be okay. I teach positivity and well-being, think positive, but I couldn't. I was watching and obsessing about my phone, constantly checking, are my results through, are my results through. And those 3 days, I think it was, being on my own, waiting for the results, was probably one of the most awful periods of my life. And then on the Monday morning, I think it was, I looked to my SMS, it said Tantok Singh Hospital, COVID-19. My heart was going boom, 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 boom. I looked inside the SMS. And I can't tell you how pleased I was to see the words, test results negative, not detected. My God, Vanan, I jumped up and down. I thanked God. I called my wife. I was in such ecstasy. Like, it was like I'd been let out of prison and given my life back. Now, I don't want to exaggerate my case, because there are people 10 times worse that test positive and have loved ones in hospital. But that sense of freedom that I got, and sense of love for life that I got. So you're never too old to actually be anxious, as I was terribly anxious. You're never too old to then just be so grateful to be alive. So that was my personal experience. And ask me some more questions, because I guess I can tell you more, but that was the experience that I had.
Thank you, Doctor, for sharing the personal experience, because that actually shows that every one of us has strengths and weaknesses. But the human nature is always been such that we always want to show how strong we are or how able we can do things. But there's always a softer side you have mentioned very beautifully, and I mean, in just simple words. I think that's what I like about it's the simplicity that you have mentioned. But again, like when we talked about experiences and the thought of such a blissful state and joy, but currently that's not happening in the world at the moment. I know, Doc, that you actually teach life experiences. You talked about a lot about neuroscience and change. So that's a lot of if I can say a little bit elaborate on that hormones that's moving around our personal body in terms of
Well, all of it. Great question, Vanan. I mean, everybody has a survival mentality. Way back when we were wandering around in the jungles or the plains, we were afraid for our life, worrying that, for example, if there's a wild animal tracing around, or elephants or whatever, when we saw that threat to life, the body has a beautiful system called the survival mechanism. So chemicals are released into our bodily system, to our brain, that cause us to run away or face the animal and fight. And the body's beautifully set up for us to be able to do that. But the problem now, in the olden days, when we either fought or ran away from the elephant, then we had time to relax and cool down, and our bodily systems comes back to normal. In today's world, we have threat after threat after threat, and we don't take time to calm down. And so that's true outside of COVID-19. I teach a lot of things about well-being and stress, and how to calm down the bodily response so you can relax and come back to equilibrium. The problem with COVID is the threat is all around us and doesn't go away. Now, let me say there are ways to control that, because what we do at this time, just as I was looking for the results of the test and I was in anxiety, what all of us do is watch the news. And every time, and I'm guilty of that, I do that as well. Every time we see the news, and every time we see more deaths in Europe, in America, every time, like now, we're in lockdown, mostly in lockdown here in Singapore, and we see the numbers rising. Now, luckily at the moment, not luckily, that's the wrong word to say. At the moment, our deaths or our infections in Singapore are in the foreign workers' dormitories. And so one light at the end of the tunnel is that local numbers are coming down every day for the last few days. That actually makes me feel good. But then again, at the same time, I feel so much pain for our foreign workers. Our foreign workers who build Singapore. All the buildings, the hospital, the ports, the roads, etc., are built by these wonderful foreign workers who leave their families to earn money, but they come and make Singapore what it is. And I feel so bad at the moment for our foreign worker dormitories and how it must feel for them and the fear that they must have. Actually, when I went for my test,
Yeah.
and by the way, Tan Tock Seng Hospital, Infectious Diseases Hospital, superb. What an amazing place, what amazing staff. The only bit that hurts is when they stick this thing right up both nostrils and you have 5 seconds of pain. But as I was being tested, there was actually a foreign worker next to me, I mean, 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet apart, but he was describing how awful he felt because a guy close to him sneezed. And the doctor was saying, how is the sneezing? So what happens to us with all of this stuff around us, watching the TV in America, et cetera, keeps us in a state of survival. What is good is that for local infections, it's coming down. But I regularly, every day, pray for the foreign workers and how awful it is for them. So that's basically how these fears are still around for us at the moment.
As things get more evolved in Singapore, even every part of the country, all we can say that we are trying to contain the virus at the moment, not conquer yet. So I think conquering probably will need more cohesion or more social responsibility. I think that is where the conquering part can come in. But right now, it's trying to be more on the containing part, right, Doctor?
So I missed those last words. You've frozen on the screen there.
I was saying
Vanan, can you
that
say again?
as we are in the containing stage, the conquering might even take a month or even quite some time. So at this point of time, what is your humble tip or advice for a lot of people who are listening at this point of time? Because as we talked on earlier, you are the only gentleman in the whole wide universe having a PhD in synchronicity. So if you can talk a little bit more in that, I think that will be going to be very helpful, because to imagine you are the only one who have PhD, that's amazing.
Well, I'm the only one in the world with a grounded theory PhD in leadership and synchronicity. And let me kind of put these two together. I'm still having difficulty in putting COVID together and synchronicity together. But basically, synchronicity is if you have a thought or a wish or a desire, then somehow as you go around your daily life, you come across the answer to what it is that you desire. For example, take a simple case. It could be that you have said to yourself, I run this great show, Coffee with Vanan, and I need now to have somebody who's got personal experience of the fears of COVID-19. And then you and I didn't know each other a week ago.
Yeah.
But then you just came across my video, which talked about the fears of COVID-19. You wrote me an email or sent me a message, and I responded, looked around you first, and it seemed to me that you're a great guy. You're friends with 17 of my Facebook friends, so I knew you were a good guy. And then I saw your face and I saw you talk and said, this is a really good guy. So that could be seen as synchronicity, meaning your next show, you wanted somebody who's got personal experience of the fears of COVID-19. Within a day or two, I had turned up in your life. So all through our lives, synchronicity guides us and helps us. It could be take this job or don't take this job. It could be marry this person, don't marry this person. If you have something that you want to do and you look around you in your life, there is an answer which turns up. Now, this has been written about and talked about for hundreds of years. The person who made it most famous this century was Carl Jung, the great psychotherapist, and he talked about it. So it happened to me so much. I got married based on this, something turning up. I found my house based on this. I developed my career based on this. Very simple example from business and money. I lived in Pasir Panjang in 1974 or so. 10 minutes before 4 o'clock one Thursday afternoon, I looked at my books and said, I need $15,000 to balance the books this month. That was 10 minutes before 4. 4 o'clock, my partner from Amsterdam called me and said, Philip, I'm invited to go to Beijing next week. I can't make it. Will you go for me? I looked at my diary, I was free. He said, good, you're confirmed. And by the way, the good news is the pay is good, $15,000.
Yeah.
So within 10 minutes of me wanting something, it actually appeared. Now, I can tell you many short and big stories, and I'm sure your listeners will have had that same thing happen to them. So that's basically synchronicity. And I wanted to make the next period of my business and my life focused around helping leaders with understanding synchronicity, hence the PhD. Now, in relation to COVID-19, it's very difficult to know how and why. But some little things that people are saying is that it is bringing us back to a greater sense of family. One of the things that I learned by being on my own waiting for my results was how much my wife meant to me, how much my job and purpose meant to me, and that once we're through all of this, I'm going to hold my loved ones much more closer. I'm going to value what I'm doing with my life and make sure I do that. So if synchronicity is true, and I believe it is, and it's been reported on throughout the years, one of the benefits of COVID-19, the skies are clearing of infestation from particles and smoke and all the rest of it. At the moment, from I think New Delhi, you can now see the Himalayas, which you could never see before.
That's true.
And we know that climate change is one of the biggest problems. They have dolphins swimming in Venice canals. Before, Venice canals were dirty, polluted, and now they're actually clear and clean. So that's the way I'm beginning to connect. Now, what I find tough, so many people have died, and that's tragic. And so many people have died separate from their loved ones, not even able to be with them at the point of death. So I don't know yet how synchronicity fits in with all of that. But that's the history of why I'm doing synchronicity in leadership, because I think there are answers to so many of your personal questions in your environment, and you have the ability to intuit and find and use some of those answers. Does that make a bit of sense?
Of course, Doc. I mean, it really makes sense because I'm also a strong believer, like what you have mentioned for the past couple of minutes, that I'm a strong believer of Mother Nature. So I love to be out in the wild, in the forest, just be alone sometimes. I call it my me time or my recharge time. Just like
Where do you go? Where do you go in Singapore to be in nature?
a couple of places that I go to, like Bukit Timah, Mount Faber's, and there's a particular place where I just walk into the forest where I'm unknown. And sometimes it's just to be there, and you can feel a great synchronization is happening at that point of time
Sure.
because there's birds chirping, like they're telling me something. The wind is blowing me. I can feel it. The leaves are just coming down from the tree, shredding slowly. It's giving me signals. So I'm just feeling very refreshed and recharged whenever
Well,
I'm
that's
with.
interesting. It's interesting, Vanna, because for my research in my PhD, environment plays a massive part in attracting synchronicity. And everybody talked about being out in nature. Can I share one story? I posted a video yesterday. One of my places to go to is Fort Canning. I'm so blessed to live next to Fort Canning and for there to be very few people there. One of the most beautiful places in Singapore. And yesterday I went and I just walked up. I had my camera with me, and there was a cockerel was walking up the hill in the grass, and looked like he wanted to jump the fence. Now the fence is 5 times taller than the cockerel. But
Okay.
I just for 2 minutes watched him planning around, then suddenly, whoom, jumped. And it made me think the relevance of that to now, and I posted it, and it's got masses of views, is that the stuff that you feel is impossible and difficult, and all of us face difficulties, the stuff that we think is impossible, that little cockerel taught me the impossible now can become possible. And if within nature, there's just a story of a cockerel jumping over a thing, but 5 times bigger than the cockerel, it made me think, you know, I can overcome these difficulties. The stuff, and so that's what nature teaches you. It puts you in a state of blessedness for the great world in which we have. And thank God Singapore has so many green places. So answers can come.
And also when we talk about nature itself, Doc, I totally agree with what we have just talked about. That it's always something to learn about
Yes.
calmness, about focus, even to be in the present moment. We also have a great topic that we talked about, like being anxious, being stressed of the unknown makes you, your whole body system to go under a big uh, chaos mode at this point
Constriction. Our
in time.
body constricts.
I mean, so that's why if you recently have seen some videos in locally in Singapore, people are going a bit crazy. You know, some guys are throwing chairs from the neighborhood. People are starting
Really?
to get into quarrels because the tension is just starting to build up because humans are always been socialized with people
Yeah.
around. Now we are like confined. The weekends are no more a weekend, the weekdays are not weekdays, everybody's just staying at home, so it's becoming like a caveman life. I mean, that's how we are were.
And can I mention, you're absolutely spot on. So I think the benefit of COVID-19 is that we can spend close time with our families, rich time. But for some people, it's hell on earth. And I want to mention especially, and really, my heart goes out to those women who, because of now being in a confined space, are suffering domestic violence.
Yes.
And there's been a large uptrend of women being abused because of COVID-19. And I really just want to say to all men anywhere and everywhere, there is never any excuse to do violence to women. And I think we men, especially at this time, have to do whatever we can to support our sisters from harm and difficulty that has happened because of COVID-19.
I'm sure a lot of ladies going to love you for saying that statement. You probably
Well,
will get a lot of messages.
it's a basic human right. It's appalling that violence to women has gone up at this time. Women are equal to men, period. And I feel appalled that I'm part of the male race where that is happening. So guys, any frustrations or difficulty you have, don't ever do violence to the women in your life. It's unacceptable.
That was a very powerful and short information for the male segments for all those in Singapore itself. Doctor, if we can go a little bit more deeper into that, into this topic, that I think it will be a very interesting topic for the both of us and also for all our listeners,
Sure, sure,
is
sure.
preparation. I mean, how do we prepare? I mean, there's always a saying, before going to war, you always get yourself prepared. But
Right,
this
right.
COVID-19, the COVID-19 came in without preparation. I'm not talking about in terms of government structures or policies because they always been planning. But as humans, we have not planned for such a situation to be in. Is there something that we need to learn or quickly at this point of time so that we can be prepared for the upcoming months or weeks ahead of us?
It's a very good question, Valan, because I teach a program, and I just put some stuff here. I teach a program called Resilience Advantage, and I teach a program called Change Your Mind, Create New Results. This is a program designed by the Heart Math Organization. This is a program designed by Dr. Joe Dispenza, a well-known neurologist. And they say, and this is taking it bigger than COVID, there are problems that are going to come to you all through your life and you don't know what to do about it. And so I think we need a much stronger introduction to people everywhere about what it means to be in stress and what it means to have resilience to deal with that stress. And very simply, it really comes from quietening down the survival mentality response. When stress comes, we're in survival. Our body constricts and we get irritated and we can get into arguments. And so in very simple terms, recognize when you're in stress and take a pause. The thing about being a human being is that unlike the animals, we can stop our reactive response and take a pause and then choose our response. Our responses, negative responses, are linked to old memory. And one of the biggest things to do, and I work with corporations too, 85% of change programs fail because the interventions done do not help people to still and change the memories and the mindsets. So whenever COVID happens, which is happening now, or whenever any crisis happens, recognize we're going to respond with a survival mentality and say, I don't need to respond this way. I can pause and I can choose a positive response. So I do a whole range of techniques and concepts that help people shift beyond that and choose whatever, because it's going to happen for the rest of your life. And knowing how to respond is crucial for all of us.
So we don't let the situation change us. Rather, we take control of the situation and we can change the situation.
Well, first of all, it's knowing that this is what stress and change and crisis do to you. It puts you into survival mentality. And so being able to say, so for example, when you see a friend who's got COVID-19 and you think, oh my God, I could get it, is to stop that thought, because that thought comes from fear, which is actually a neural pathway in the brain, recognize that, and then pause, and then look at facts. And so when you look at the facts in COVID-19, there's a minuscule percentage of people who get admitted to ICU, and an even smaller percentage actually die. So facts can actually help you quieten that fear that's stalking around in your negative mindset, move into neutral. And then I have a technique which comes from Heart Math Organization. I told you who designed this program. It's a very simple 3-step technique. Breathe and breathe deeply, and that calms your system. And as you breathe in deeply, breathe to your heart. And as you let positive things come, because we ask people to remember a good time, breathe that into the heart and let that flood the body. And then you send with the out breath that positive, peaceful feeling to whatever situation is causing difficulty. It's a very simple process. Very happy to give that for 3. Number 1, breathe deeply to your heart. Number 2, bring in a positive experience to think about as you are breathing to your heart. Step 3, send that positive emotion to the whole of your bodily system, and then to loved ones, friends, and neighbors.
I think that was really a great tip for anyone to just follow that, because this, as I mentioned earlier, this comes from a humble decades of experiences that you brought along, and to share. I think it's a blessing to all of us, including myself, because for me, is learning is always a daily steps. If we are not learning on each and every day, then I think we are failing, and we are going 3 to 5 steps every day at the back. And in fact, we'll never be able to complete it, or we will never be able to complete anything in our life in terms of a race. But it's a constant race that we have to go through in our daily lives. But that makes me interesting, Doctor, because just now you mentioned earlier that the whole universe, a little bit on a law of attraction, but you mentioned very very powerfully and very impactfully that whatever that we feel and whatever that we strongly believe in our mind and physically, those things actually happens. So can we say the whole universe is listening actively?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, basically, you can see my synchronicity PhD as the science behind the law of attraction. Most of your listeners, I'm sure, know the law of attraction, but we didn't know the science behind it. Quantum physics and quantum mechanics now tell us that the human system is more energy than physical matter. In fact, some people have put statistics behind this that say that your body is 1% of who you are, 99% of who you are is magnetic energy. which means, and I just happen to have it here. It means, you see, this book is called Entangled Minds, which comes from quantum physics, that says everybody is entangled. If you contact with somebody, then that means your energy is entangled with them, which is why all of us have had this experience. We can be in Singapore. My sister is in the UK. I'm from the UK. So I can be here, and if she has pain or fear or difficulty, she's facing something, I can sense and feel that halfway around the world. That's because of quantum entanglement, the entanglement of our quantum energy. And they've done experiments on this. I won't bore you all with that. But I think that's the important thing to remember, is that all of us have the ability through our magnetic energetic system to contact and be entangled with other situations. So that's the science, in a very brief way, behind law of attraction. And therefore, it takes it out of the voodoo world, the woo-woo world, and into the world of science, which is why I'm bringing that to organizations to say, trust your intuition that tells you and advises you about a certain way to go.
That was again.
Ask me,
sorry, doctor?
Ask me more questions.
I think that was again very fruitful for me. I'm not sure about the audience, but for true, in fact, I'm like more like a student at the moment, because I do strongly believe in whatever that you have just mentioned it, but it's just that it brings up a memory again, because I used to do this technique you have just mentioned. Usually what I do is, in the previous job of mine, I was at Raffles Place, and you know how packed and crowded a Raffles Place will be, right, at lunchtime.
I can see it here.
Yeah, okay.
Raffles Place is there.
But now you can't see any people there right now.
I can see the old Westin, I can see Parliament, I can see the law courts, and I can see nobody working on the streets.
So everybody's working from home. So what I do these tests is on myself, right? I sit down quietly in a place, close my eyes, said, okay, I know someone that going to come to me at this point of time and saying hi to me. So I close my eyes, I strongly believe in, and I'm just synchronized, totally synchronized with the universe. I'm not bothered about the environment. I'm not bothered about anything that is going on. I'm just focusing on myself, that I am going to meet someone which I know, and it's going to say hi to me. I open up my eyes, not 5 minutes, maybe not 15 minutes. I waited patiently. Within 30 minutes, a client of mine who just walked by and said, hi, Vanan. I was like, wow, this is really happening. So which I totally agree with what you said. I mean, the whole wide universe is listening actively instead of passively. So we got to believe, and we got to come in within us.
So let me support you 100%, Vanan. Don't ever, to you and to your audience, treat this as just chance or luck, because that's what we've done, which dismisses this incredible spiritual quality that we have. The whole universe is connected. And when you have two things, a strong intent and a strong feeling, you can bring to you that which you need. Let me tell you, do we have time?
Yes, we have. We have plenty of time.
Let me tell you a very similar experience. I was in Orchard Central at Coffee Bean there, and I was talking to my financial advisor, but before we got into the detail of the finance, I just said to him, I'm 66 years old this year, just had my birthday, and number two, I had a strange dream last night about being a freedom fighter. Okay, so 66, freedom fighter. At that precise moment, as I told the story, on my left, a guy was walking past me. On the back of his t-shirt, it said 66, freedom fighter.
Wow.
I quickly went after him. I didn't stop him. I took a photograph of his T-shirt. Now, that is a, whatever the word is, a kind of reminder that this was going to be a lucky year. And I just submitted my PhD defense, and that told me I was going to be successful. And then freedom fighter, I feel at the moment in my work in organizations, I'm a freedom fighter for the spiritual side of human beings, men and women, to be listened to. I'm a freedom fighter for that. So that's why I interpret it to be. But the amazing thing was, it wasn't 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. It was immediate, and it was a total stranger who just happened to have on his teeth. Now, how often do you see the words 66 freedom fighter? I've never seen it before, and I've never seen it since. That's synchronicity.
So a big things is happening around us, even though we don't see it. Some people may question it. Is it possible, or is this something that we are fooling ourselves, as what we call the law of attraction? It happens by chance. It happened by luck. But there's so many circumstances, even in my life or even in your teaching, that it has proven time to time. But it's just that, like you said, the intent and the focused and the outcome of it have to be strongly believed in before things start to manifest.
Two things: strong intent, elevated emotion. Those are the two important things to have, and to not think this is luck or coincidence. If you want something, strong intent, elevated emotion, and then just be as an observer in your life and notice especially any unusual things that come your way.
Could I also say that, Doctor, because this brings us to even more deeper to the depth of this information. Could we say that this is some kind of a melodrama that is already been planned? It's like, tomorrow I'll be at a coffee bin drinking this, and these guys are going to come and say hi to me. Is this something's already planned? We just that we can't see the future, and we always have this.
I don't know about that. No, I'm not a fatalist. I believe that we make our lives. So even though you think of something, and even though something comes your way, you have the choice whether or not to accept that. I believe, I guess this is from way back in my life, I believe we have choice. I don't think everything is predetermined. And even if there is a template for our lives, as some people believe, even that template is not fixed. The template is there, but you can change it. You can move this, you can move this, you can move this, you can move this. You can just sit back and say, it's fate. Or you can say, okay, my life is playing out according to it's supposed to, but I can change it. I can move it. I can adjust it.
I love that. I truly love that. You can see how excited I am, rather than blaming onto the situation or the circumstance. And you just said, how can we change it? I mean, that is a very powerful impact. But Dr. Phil, we do see two type of people at this point of time as we speak. One,
okay,
total melt out like a candle. Another one is shining like a star. So there's two different type of people at this point of time. One is a super positive, one is a super negativity. How can we bring up the balance, or is it possible?
Oh, that's a tough one, Fernand. I have known people who were negative when I met them. I taught them many things. They were still negative, and still 10 years later, they're negative now. So you can say that's always going to be the case. But I believe that somebody who stays with negativity is somebody who's been highly damaged in their relationships in life, and probably with their parents. I believe, and I don't believe this just blindly, I believe that we can change because I've seen it happen with me and in other people's lives. So the thing is that a positive mindset, what's the difficulty and what harm can be done through having a positive mindset? Because even if you don't believe it's true, but you practice it and constantly keep it in mind to look on the bright side, then actually that can shift people's attitudes. I strongly believe that your thoughts become your reality. So if as you walk through your day and you wake up in the morning and you say, oh my God, I hope I get through today without anything bad happening, but something bad's going to happen because it always does. That wording creates your reality. Because what happens is when you have a positive mindset, it literally floods the cells in your body and changes the physicality of your body to be optimistic. It even strengthens your immune system. Whereas those people who always look on the dark side, sure, sometimes it might keep them safe, but actually it keeps them in a physically depressed state and even impacts your health and your immune system. So I've developed the belief, because I've noticed through my life, if I say to myself, something great is going to happen today. And if I've met this person and they screwed me around and stole money for me or were nasty to me, that even is a lesson there. And the lesson there is to develop, again, it's a choice. If somebody screws around and steals money from you and deceives you, you can say, typical, people can't be trusted, I'm never going to trust anybody again. Or you can say, that's one example, but I have many great examples of great people who don't cheat me or don't hurt me, and continue with that mindset. The choice is yours. Whichever one you choose becomes your reality.
We also say, Doc, I mean, I'm trying to put into shorter sentence of what well explained in that perspective content. Could we also say that we are setting up for our success and we are sabotaging ourselves for failure? Can I put it into shorter terms like that?
That's the better way of putting it. It's a good way of putting it. I think that's true. I think that's true. And the root of a lot of it, Vanan, is I don't trust and love myself. When you have a crisis happen to you, if you say, which I think is the truth, whatever happens, I can handle this. That is a great attitude to have in response to anything that comes your way.
That's a powerful mantra. Mantra is a universal word that Indians use. We use it. It's a very powerful words that we recite for prayers. I think that's a powerful mantra. Anything that comes to me, I am able to handle it. So that word "I am" gives you a confidence, the kind of boost. I do believe in hormones. I mean, it is hormones at that time. If sometimes I feel very lethargic, which I do, sometimes I get a bit lazy. Sometimes I get stressed. I think the things that I do is sometimes a bit of dark chocolates. Sometimes I go for my exercises. Sometimes I go for my sweat. So what I know what's happening to my body is I'm increasing up the dopamine. I'm increasing the endorphin so that I feel so energized. My serotonin, my oxytocin. So all these chemicals or these hormones in our body are constantly fluctuating. So that word that you said is very powerful because we are setting up right for what is upcoming next.
I think you're right, and you're right to connect it to the chemicals in our body, because that's what happens. And if, oh well, so the other way, a lot of problems with fear happen because you are afraid that what happens, you won't be able to handle it. Whereas if you say, whatever happens, I got this, I'll handle this, that produces positive chemicals and actually has a whole different way to approaching what was going. If you knew that whatever you did, it was going to be okay, that changes your whole approach to anxiety and crisis and fear.
I think this conversation is not going to end at all because it's just overflowing of informations. I think these are the valuable time. I think for some, COVID-19 has been a very painful situation. It taught them serious lessons because, Doc, what I do see is people with high egos, the kind of, envies and jealousies. And, nowadays I don't see, I mean, there is, but you can see people starting to appreciate life. People are starting to appreciate Mother Nature, not so much of money because you can have millions and millions of dollars at this point of time, but you can't go shopping. You can go for
Yeah,
massage. You
yeah,
can't do anything with luxury right now.
exactly. So I think that's a really important thing to remember, that in crisis, and this is the phrase I love, people often say a crisis builds character. Not true. A crisis reveals character. Meaning that if you're egotistical, if you're a leader, if you're kind, whatever, put yourself in a crisis, it will tell me what sort of woman or man you are, how you respond to difficulties. And I don't want to mention politics, so I won't. But in a certain large Western country, with the press conferences that you see every day, you can see very clearly responses which are based on ego, which are based on looking after yourself, and responses which are based on looking after everybody. And so I think a crisis can reveal who you are. And the reality of it for me is the default mechanism of the human being is love and care for others. And I think we see that all over the world at the moment. Yes, we see the opposite. But if you look at the amazing job that frontline workers do. Frontline workers don't go to work every day because they are worried not to earn money. They go to work every day knowing they are putting their own family at risk, and they're doing it for love of their fellow human beings. And all over the world, we see the best of humanity coming out, and occasionally, and in certain places, we see ego coming out. The rule of thumb I have for this, Banan, is that when you see a situation, how much does it elevate you? How much does it make your heart sing? And there are plenty of examples of that going on in the world at the moment.
I mean, giving a great appreciation to our frontline workers, especially the nurses, the doctors, or even we talk about the cleaners and delivery drivers. There's so many people to give full of gratitude and thankful for them. But if you look at this point of time, I mean, I have observed few of them, but I would love to share here in this platform that which I meant they were very strong, but turned out to be they are weaker than what I thought of, because there's a couple of masks that everyone can wear. Oh, I'm positive, I am good, I'm strong, with a couple of masks that I change constantly. But like what you mentioned, Doc Phil, is during the crisis is the moment or the period where people can't wear any more masks, because that is where everything is hit on them, and they can't put up a melodrama. I can't put a mask. So that was clearly explained by yourself earlier on as well.
I think that's so important. I have a program I've developed recently where I use an exercise where an individual in a group of 3 or 4 goes, and I give them masks, and they wear the mask, and they say to their colleagues in the little group, let me tell you who I am. Let me tell you the mask that I wear. I'm successful. I'm not afraid. I've got a great family. I've got a great car. I've got a great business. Everything's doing good and expanding. And then I say to them, now take away, it's a physical mask, take away the mask from your face, and now say the words, let me tell you who I am behind my mask. And I tell you, it's one of the most powerful exercises I designed. And I never have people, I have people always when I do the exercise crying, as they reveal to their colleagues exactly who they are. And I think one of the yearnings of human beings that we have is to be acceptable for who we are behind our mask. And the more we learn to take off that mask, the more authentic we become and the more meaningful life we have.
I mean, I'm speechless, Doc, because Dr. Phil, because as I said, our topic is just keeps on going. I think we can complete this only tomorrow afternoon, but I think.
Well, I don't want your listeners to get bored. So if you think there's more to say, then we could save for another time if there's any questions from you. But I've got a whole range of other things to share. I didn't tell you I'm a marriage counselor and family therapist by original training.
You see, so more talents are coming out when I get more chance to speak to you.
Well, as I say, I went into leadership development 40 years ago, but the 10 years before that, I worked in inner city London as a child and family therapist and marriage counselor. So a lot of the things I think we're learning at this time is to be closer to our family and to show our family how much we actually care for them.
I mean, I would love to have our conversation to keep on going, but I know that we are almost at 55
Yeah,
minutes into a
I
great.
mean, in a few weeks' time, I'm happy to come back, but
Yeah,
I think
sure,
that's
Doc.
enough of a blast for now.
There's always a saying that if lovers meet each other, they can be talking for 10 hours or 15 hours, and they feel that it was just 1 minute. But the same
Yeah, yeah,
person sits in a hot pot or hot boiling water within a matter of fraction of a second, you can feel the heat. So this time
right,
span
right.
over 55 minutes, I think is very valuable, very informative. People, listeners or viewers, whoever is seeing this video, I think will benefit if they have the patience to watch through these 55 minutes. But I
Well,
strongly suggest they should.
I'll send you one or two resources to send to your listeners if they're interested. Just to let you know, I organized Singapore's first happiness conference, and I wrote a book, Searching for Singapore's Happiest People. So maybe we can talk about happiness or something like that next time around.
We should can come back again on our next visit. And obviously, once the C-19 goes away, I would definitely want to bring you up for a coffee or a good lunch to have a better, greater discussion on what are the things that we can do. But doctor,
Let,
before
uh,
we end, I will love you to say some magical words during this period for someone who can just pick it up and say, you know what, I'm ready to go. You guys gave a lot of good tips, but this is like, yes, that advice. If you
okay,
could.
if you have COVID-19, there's no better place to be than Singapore. I've been 30 years in Singapore. I love my adopted country, and I'm married to a Singaporean, and that helps as well. In this time, remember the facts say, percentage-wise, it's very unlikely that anything bad's going to happen to you. So look at the facts. Be thankful that we have a government who knows what it's doing and can actually have rules and laws to keep us safe. I'm so grateful to the Singapore government for that. And at this time, two important things. As you reflect on your life, reflect on what's important. And for me, two things. Family, my wife and my family, hold them close and let them know how much you love them. Don't delay. And secondly, let this time be a time for you to reflect what you're doing with your life. Every one of us has a purpose. Make sure you're living what you consider to be your purpose in life. That's what this time is teaching us.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I mean, I can't. I would love to mention all the points that I wrote it down, but looks like it's more than 15 over points that I don't want to mention again because it's very
Maybe summarize. Maybe you can summarize them and then just send them. I'd be interested to know what I've said too, because sometimes I talk rubbish and sometimes I say things that are worth listening to.
But again, it's a very fruitful session, and I really thank the universe and yourself for giving us this opportunity to share, because I think sharing is the biggest wealth that anyone could give to for their benefits, and to see the joy in them as if we have the joy in us. I think you have done it very blissfully. I mean, that's the word I want to use. Very blissfully.
My blessing, Vanan, is to meet you.
Thank you.
I like your style. I like what you're doing, and I really am glad that we somehow met in this way. And I'm sure our friendship will continue.
Thank you, Dr. Phil. I will catch you again, and we will meet up another session very soon. Till now, thank you. This is Coach Vance, and this is Dr. Phil for joining us. Thank you.
Bye.